Hello everyone and welcome to another Star Wars figure review. Today we're going to take a look at some more really cool figures from the Black Series 6-inch line by Hasbro, and in today's review we're going to take a look at a set that was released late last year as part of a Target store exclusive. Now for those of us here in the UK, obviously we don't have access to Target stores, so the best place to purchase this one was of course online through staractionfigures.co.uk. Now as always, there's a link down below in the video description where if you want to purchase this particular set for yourself, you can do that. Now let me tell you, as a fan of the Expanded Universe, I really love this set, and if you're into the EU as well, I think you're going to love this one, and it's really cool. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the set that we're going to take a look at today. It is of course none other than the Imperial Shadow Squadron, which as you can see does feature a Shadow Biker Scout, a Shadow Speeder Bike and a Shadow Stormtrooper, who I'll give you a look at in just a little bit. Now I've got to say, out of the entire Black Series 6-inch line, this is probably one of the best value for money products out there. As I mentioned earlier, we get two awesome 6-inch figures in this set, a fantastic vehicle, and for $49.99 you really can't go wrong, especially considering the fact that we pay around $19.99 for these figures on their own. So two figures even, and a very cool vehicle, gets top marks in my book. So let's take a look at the packaging that this one comes in, and then we'll jump into the details of the products. Now I've got to say, I really do like the packaging that this one comes in. As you can see in the backdrop there, we do have a very cool scene, which in this instance depicts the Millennium Falcon in the hangar of the Death Star from Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. Now obviously this isn't screen accurate because during that scene we never actually see any Shadow Troopers of any kind, but just the fact that Hasbro went that extra mile to include that backdrop and just make the packaging stand out a little bit more is really cool. So I really do like that. And for those of us that take pictures of our action figures, that's going to come in really handy. So be sure to stay tuned to my Instagram account because I'll be sharing quite a few images featuring this backdrop. Now in terms of the rest of the packaging, we have some very cool stylized images of the characters included down below. And on the reverse side we have a very cool stylized image of the Shadow Troopers in action. Now I have seen this image doing the rounds before. I think I saw it on Wikipedia some time ago, but I'm guessing it's from some sort of comic book or graphic novel, although which exact one I'm not 100% sure. So if anyone cares to enlighten us and give us a bit of knowledge, then please feel free to leave a comment down below. So that is the box that this one comes in. Very cool, very long and very wide, but again, if you're a mint in box collector, this one is really going to stand out in your collection. So there we go, that is the packaging. Now let's take a look at the figures themselves, and we'll kick things off in this review by taking a look at this guy, and this is of course the Shadow Stormtrooper. Now I've got to say, of the two figures that are included in this set, I think this one is possibly my favourite. There's just something about Shadow Stormtroopers that I absolutely love. You know, white Stormtroopers, they're all well and good, but there's something about Stormtroopers in black armour that just brings with it a whole new level of cool, and this guy is no exception. Now it is interesting to point out that these figures do in fact represent the very first Expanded Universe characters to be released in the 6-inch line. So it's really cool in that respect. Now the figure itself is a repaint, although it is a repaint of one of the best figures from the 6-inch line, and that is the 6-inch Sandtrooper. Now in all essence this is exactly the same figure aside from the Shadow Deco. He comes with all the same articulation and even the same weapons. Now the only thing that is missing from this guy is the backpack, but that's not a huge issue. But as you can see, he does come with the shoulder pauldron, the blasters, and just all the very cool accessories that we've come to expect from the 6-inch Sandtroopers. Now I'll give you a look at the details of the figure and then run through the accessories, and then we'll talk about articulation because this guy comes with a ton. So as always, we're going to take a small zoom in on this guy just to take a look at him in more detail. Now one thing I really like about this figure is the fact that Hasbro didn't sculpt or paint him in one solid block of black. Instead the colour's been separated, which looks really cool and just adds another level of depth to the figure. As you can see, the armour is painted in a rather matte finish. You know, it's black, but it has a small tint of gloss to it. But then underneath all that armour we do of course have the bodysuit. Now I'll take you down to the figure's knees which obviously show this off a little bit better. But as you can see, the bodysuit underneath the armour of the figure is painted in this sort of bluey grey finish, which just looks really cool. Again, it's only a subtle difference, but it really does help the armour to stand out, you know, rather than just being a solid black figure. You've got that separation of colour, which I really, really like, and it goes a long way to making this figure look very, very cool. Now, obviously, you've got other highlights throughout the figure, such as the silver paint on the mouthpiece. You've got all those vents and ports and what have you painted on the rest of the helmet. And as you can see, the weapons have been painted in that sort of grey-black colour as well, just to make them stand out a little bit more as well. So in terms of weapons, as you can see, this particular Shadow Stormtrooper does come with the E11 blaster rifle, which again is fantastically sculpted and looks really, really nice. Draped over the figure's shoulder, we also have the T21 repeating blaster rifle. And also included with this guy is the sort of long Stormtrooper rifle that we see either Han or Luke, I forget which one, carry when they're disguised as Stormtroopers in A New Hope. So a nice range of weapons included with this figure, and as you can see, he really does look very imposing. Certainly a trooper that you would not want to mess with. Now, in terms of articulation, this guy, as I said, is absolutely packed to the brim. So I'll just separate the weapons for you a little bit now, just to break down some of that articulation. Obviously, from the 6-inch line, that really does allow you a lot more freedom in terms of posability. So we do have a ball joint and a hinge at the neck. So not only can you look all around, but you can look up and down, side to side as well. We have hinges at the shoulders, but sadly the shoulder armour on this side and the pauldron on this side does hinder some of that movement a little bit. But it's not a major issue. We do get swivels at the bicep, just there. Hinges again at the elbow. Hinges at the wrists. We get a ball jointed torso with this figure. Really great range of posability in the midsection. We also have hinges at the hips, swivels at the thighs, and double joints at the knees and ankles. So really great articulation for this guy. You can pretty much get him in any pose that you so wish. And overall, he's just a fantastic figure. Again, probably my favourite of the Stormtrooper and the Biker Scout. He just has a very cool factor about him, and he's certainly a very nice figure. One thing that I do want to quickly mention before we jump on to the Biker Scout is the fact that, as you can see, on the helmet, while the helmet itself is painted in a matte black, the lenses on the visor are actually painted in a gloss finish of black, which just really, again, help the figure to stand out, and it's just a really nice bit of attention to detail by Hasbro that really does look cool, and again it adds to the cool factor of this figure. So an absolutely awesome character. So let's take a look now at the Shadow Biker Scout and Speeder Bike. Now I'm going to break this section of the review up into two parts. I'm going to give you an overall look at the Shadow Biker Scout while he's riding the Speeder Bike, and then we'll take off the pilot and give you a look at the vehicle itself. So as you can see, this is a absolutely stunning piece. First and foremost, it is a repaint of the Black Series 6-inch Speeder Bike from Return of the Jedi that was released again late last year. Now this time around, obviously, you don't have a whole level of detail due to this vehicle pretty much being solid black. So out of the two, I must admit I do prefer the Return of the Jedi version, but again, like with the Shadow Stormtrooper, this just has a very cool factor to it. It looks fantastic, and one thing to point out is the fact that it is a repaint, or not a repaint, sorry, an upscale actually, of a 3 3/4 inch release. You may remember, as part of the 30th anniversary collection back in 2007, 2008, at San Diego Comic Con of that year, Hasbro did release a 3 3/4 inch version of the Shadow Biker Scout with the Speeder Bike. Now sadly I missed out on that particular set, so to finally get it in 6-inch form is very, very cool. And for those of you that also missed out on it, I'm sure that this is going to be a must-have purchase. Now, since it's a repaint of the Black Series 6-inch Speeder Bike, none of the features of the 3 3/4 inch version are carried over. So we obviously don't have that feature where we press the ammo pouch at the back and the whole thing would explode, which is probably for the best, and it makes this a really, really cool display piece. As you can see, the speeder bike pilot or the biker scout does sit on the vehicle really nicely, and we also get a display stand with this speeder bike as well. So what I'm going to do is we're going to remove the biker scout, and then we'll take a look at some of the awesome detail that's located within the speeder bike. So again, if you'll join me in a HD zoom, let's take a look at all the detail on this thing. Now, as you can see, most of the sculpted detail does lie within the engine and the undercarriage of the vehicle. You've got some absolutely stunning detail in there. You've got the wires and pipes and nuts, bolts, rivets, turbines, all that sort of stuff going on. It just looks really, really cool. And the same can be said for the other side of the vehicle. Again, some great sculpted detail going on there. If we come to the back of the speeder bike, we obviously have the speed flaps, which can be lifted up. They are made of a very soft and flimsy material, so it does make them quite fiddly to open up. But again, once you do so, you get some great detail inside the engine. On both sides of the rear of the speeder bike, we have the Imperial cog emblem, which is really, really nice. And there are also a couple of pegs on the pedals for you to clip the biker scout into. If we come towards the front of the vehicle, just in front of the seating area there, we have some really nice sculpted detail in the control panel. Again, got nuts, bolts, rivets, and all those different gadgets going on there. At the front of the vehicle, once again, we have the handlebars for the biker scout to clip onto, followed by another Imperial cog emblem. And then right towards the front of the vehicle, we do have that fork-like design, which has become synonymous with the speeder bikes. Now, just underneath that, we do have the rotating cannon, which, as you can see, has become slightly bent. Again, it is made of a very soft and flimsy plastic, so it is prone to warping within the packaging, but that's nothing that a little bit of boiling water won't fix. Now, as I mentioned, we do get a display stand with this one. It's just a clear tripod piece, but as you can see, it does work on a ball and socket joint, so we get some really cool poses out of the display stand. You know, if you want to have this thing on a shelf, you know, looking as though it's flying through the corridors of the Death Star or through the forests of Endor, you can really get this thing in some really cool poses. And of course, the display stand is removable to give you just a speeder bike by itself. So very, very cool vehicle, very nicely sculpted and really nicely designed. So that is the speeder bike. Now let's take a look at the biker scout who rides this thing. Now again, this guy is a repaint of the Black Series 6-inch biker scout that we saw with the previously released speeder bike. But I've got to say, this guy just looks awesome. I love the black deco to this one. And again, that separation of colour within the uniform continues throughout this figure, which I really, really like. So again, we'll zoom in on this guy and just take a look at him in a little bit more detail. As you can see, obviously the biker scouts don't wear quite as much armour as the regular stormtroopers, so a lot more of that bodysuit underneath is exposed, and it gives it a really cool look. Obviously you've got that sort of grey blue colour to the jumpsuit, and then you've got all the armour plating painted in black, which just looks absolutely fantastic. As you can see, we have the Imperial cog emblem printed on the torso. Again, you've got those glossy visors or lenses in the visor with some fantastic sculpted detail within the helmet. Got a decal on the side of the visor as well. And again, all the appropriate details sculpted into the figure. So you've got the creases and folds in the bodysuit, you've got all the ammo pouches and straps. Just a very cool looking figure overall. If we come towards the bottom of the figure, as you can see, we do have a working holster located on the leg, and that does contain the regular biker scout pistol, which is a very small piece, so do be careful with that because it can be easily lost. But as you can see, it does fit in the figure's hand very nicely and creates a very cool look for the figure. Now obviously this particular set does come with a huge variety of weapons for the Shadow Stormtrooper, so if you want to add any of these weapons to this particular biker scout, you can of course do that. Now, as you can see, this guy looks absolutely awesome, and he does feature a wide variety of articulation as well. So once again, we have a ball joint at the head, followed by that hinge, which allows the figure to look up and down, as well as side to side. We have hinges at the shoulders, but again, some of that shoulder armour does hinder the posability. We've got swivels at the biceps, hinges at the elbows, and hinges at the wrists. Just below that we have a ball jointed torso, which again is hindered somewhat by the ammo pouches that are sculpted onto the abdomen. And then just below that we have hinges at the hips, which are of course crucial to this figure riding the speeder bike. We also get swivels at the thighs, double joints in the knees, and again double joints in the ankle, as well as a swivel shin. So all in all, fantastic articulation, great range of posability, and a fantastic figure overall. Really happy with this guy, and really happy to add him to the collection. So again, for the price of just $49.99, you can pick up two amazing Black Series 6-inch figures, plus a very cool vehicle. And again, in total, this really does create one of the best value for money packs from the Black Series 6-inch line. Those two guys look fantastic alongside each other, and I hope this is a sign of things to come, that we will see more Shadow Troopers within the 6-inch line. I'd love to see some Shadow Utapau Troopers from Revenge of the Sith, and obviously some of the other Shadow Troopers that we see in the expanded universe. So it definitely opens up a lot of windows, but for the time being, this set will definitely suffice. And again, there is a link down below in the video description where you can purchase this one for yourself. So that's going to do it for this review on the Imperial Shadow Squadron, once again from Hasbro's Black Series 6-inch line. I really hope you've enjoyed this review, and I'll be back with some more very soon. I've got a ton of LEGO Star Wars sets to give you a look at next, so be sure to stay tuned for all of those. Until next time guys, as always, thank you for watching, keep collecting, and may the Force be with you.